Hello and welcome to today's astrology study group. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about a certain type of aspect and something you kind of already know, but we're going to go off from there. And I want to zero in a little bit on this quintile, not a quincunx, a quintile. And I'm just looking at Google Images for a few things here, and you'll see over here on the right this five, where the circle is divided by five. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's a 72-degree angle. So it's not a major aspect, but it does divide evenly. 5 times 72. It divides evenly into the circle. Or the last class that we did, we talked about how you can divide the circle and what happens, when you divide by 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And most of the numbers work out. There's a couple irrational numbers, but then that kind of brings us into the topic of harmonics. And the whole topic of astrology is resonance. We're talking about the vibration of planets. And when you were born, all of those bodies were vibrating out in space, however you want to think about that. And it's created a tone, a vibration, a music, a song. And that's what is individual to each one of us, where, there won't be anything like you ever. I think the odds are, it's just incredible when that cycle would repeat. But then you'd have to be born on the exact same place, same spot. So it gets really kind of very mathematically strange when you start thinking about how unique you are. But there's these mathematical patterns that are really cool. As you study astrology, you keep digging and learning more about yourself, about others, how you can apply it, because it's the same application. We can take any of these aspects and we go look in our own chart, we go compare ours to someone else's, we look at the daily aspects, what's happening now, and then your progressed aspects and all the other charts that you can do are all just repeats of these concepts. So once you get it down, you can apply it everywhere. Once you know how to cook, you can cook in anybody's kitchen. Okay. All right. So here's this quintile, and we're going to zone in on a little bit of this today, and the yod pattern as well, because this yod pattern, I'm just going to kind of highlight over here. Like, there it is. This is a quintile yod, but basically, well, here, let's look at this one. Here's your regular yod, where you have two planets on the bottom that are sextile to each other, and then they are in turn quincunxed 150 degrees away from the apex top planet. Okay, so just to recap, let's just say we're going to look at the top of this pyramid here, or this triangle. It's not really a pyramid, it's a triangle. Well, it is. Anyway, that would be the major planet receiving all of that energy. So this is an interesting one, the regular yod, because you have the two planets on the bottom that are in harmony with each other, and then they're zoned in on this one that they're at an odd angle to that one, to that point one. And then if we look at this other one today, this quintile, they're that 72 degrees apart, but because of the distance and how it is, this would have to be twice the distance to make it all the way across the circle. So this would be the 144 degrees. So there's a lot of patterns here with them in there. We're going to actually go look at some, so I don't want to click on any of these, but I just wanted to point that out. Now, in a perfect chart, there's like, here's the grand, this one over here, and I haven't looked at his yet, and I would still have to go look at this. I just saw this, say Hitler and the Golden Yod. I don't know about that, but let's just look at this one. I don't want to get there. All right. So here's what would be at all of these points. And you could see it would go, it makes that star pattern. And this is what this relates to. How do you unpack this? This kind of relates to, the 5-pointed pattern is the it's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's Venus's how she rolls in space. You know, she'll go in this double quintile, and then she retrogrades, and then she'll goes back, and then she goes this way and retrogrades. So that is Venus's um, pattern in space. She makes this. So this quintile takes on a very Venusian flavor, if you will. And then people who have these or have a lot of these or have them exact are very clever and they see things, you know, in another way. And since quintiles, they're connected to Venus, and that kind of brings them that Venusian magic, if you want to think about it that way. They're naturally beautiful. You know, that pattern is beautiful. They represent love, the manifestation of physical through an act of creativity. You know, and these are, you know, if you look at flowers that are 5 petals, they're all, I would believe, edible, you know, as an edible plant. You know, a lot of them are fruits, fruit flowers. Um, they are also a skill that's developed in the pursuit of beauty, in the pursuit of magic. They're spiritual, they're creative, they're metaphysical, they're natural, they're artistic, they're aesthetic, they're humorous, clever, harmonious. And on the negative side, they could be domineering, cruel, painful, and violent. So that might explain the Hitler one. We'll have to look at that. But anyway, I don't want to get into him today. um, so back to just the coolness of a quintile. You know, it's like the five. What I was going to say is the 5 petal flowers are edible fruit. Um, the the oh, there's just so many cool things about that in the body. You know, it relates to our microtubules. Um, yeah, so it's an aspect of talent. It's kind of an innate potential of our inner creative genius. So there's some really cool things about that, and we will go look at some charts. Let's go look at this right away. Okay. Um, I want to do a couple of things. I want to look at these quintiles, and then I also want to look at some exact aspects. So while we're on the flavor of quintiles, we'll run through some of these and look at these people. I picked people today. I was looking at people who bring out a lot of information or who have, um, except for Prince, and he's just odd. I just put him there just because I wanted to see his chart again. He's got a lot of other unusual aspects. But anyway, a lot of these I picked were people that are, you know, have a lot of audience. They've been bringing information to people for a long time. Some are not here, some are still here. But anyway, I wanted to look at Elon. We looked at him 5 months ago, and um, since he's in the news right now, he's being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And that the date that this is recording, the part 1 aired, and part 2 will be tonight. And it's interesting that we looked at him 5 months ago, and I'd urge you to go back to the channel 5 months. I think it was sometime in December that we did a little deep dive on him. We looked at his chart, and I did not know the time, and I still don't have I found one thing that has the time, but I don't have a rubber stamp that's saying that's a real good time. I found it on I forget, somebody Pramayama Jyotish website. Anyway, um, and it makes him a late Gemini rising. But I'm not going to write that in stone. I'll take it as a grain of salt, sort of just, you know, we'll kind of look at it secondary. But anyway, back to the original video that we did 5 months ago. We pretty pegged it. You know, I was thinking of somebody that could represent kind of humanity, and then the and I thought that was pretty good. You know, actually, I had to go back and listen to it again, and I went over his progressed and his transits. I have to go back, and maybe in the future I'll do in another few weeks or something, do one on his current transits, which would be, you know, 6 months later, so to speak. But anyway, we predicted that he would give a flavor of humanity. Kind of, I thought he would be the person that could kind of best reflect sort of the face of humanity moving forward. And I think it's interesting. He's bought Twitter, and now he's dumping a lot of information, finding out a lot of things, and making some huge progress um, with helping humanity move forward. He he's got a lot of, I mean, there's some iffy things. I'm not going to get into the whole what I believe, what I don't believe, what I like, what I don't like. That's all, it's not part of this, what I'm bringing out today. But nonetheless, he is a forebearer of things to come. And if we look at his chart, these lines here are showing these planets that are quintile apart. These are all, he has a lot of them. Well, he's got the one, two, three, four, five, it's like six, seven. And then the darker lines are more exact. When I pulled up the aspect little chart, they're all pretty close, within like 1 to 2 degrees. And it almost looks like he's like, if we could cross over here from Chiron all the way over to Neptune or Jupiter, he would have like almost a grand, all the way around. But he doesn't. But he does have a quintile yod, and we can see it right here with, well, let's look at the apex. Mars is at the apex. So Mars is getting funneled all of this energy from, let me move this a little bit for it, from Pluto down here and Mercury. So let's just think about that a second. Okay, the conversation. Now we got a three-way conversation. We talk about a yod. We've got Pluto and Mercury in that quintile, 72 degrees away from each other. So that is being creative with, something communicating something. He's got to communicate something that's Plutonian, something that's transformed, right? And then look at him really trying, he's into space, he was into the electric cars, he's into, now he's into communications. Look at that with communications, with Twitter. And then Mars, that Mars is that forward moving. And look at the Mars in Aquarius, and it's very close to his North Node, right there, both of them in Aquarius. So that's moving humanity forward. If I ever saw something like that, look at Mars, he's got the energy to do it. Pluto, that transformative power, and Mercury, the communications. Now, close by, look at there, the sun is making that a quintile to Neptune. So we can think that's where maybe he can pull off some of the things out of the blue that he is, pulling up some of this stuff. Is it dumb luck? Is it not? And then look at also the sun is also making a quintile to Jupiter. And that's probably where we have the luck with the, the money in being into, how big of a fortune he has to use at his disposal. So the sun, that's it's not, it would be kind of a, I don't know what I'd call this because it's only 3 degrees apart, but it is technically a yod here, because we have the sun and these two planets are almost conjunct each other. So yeah, that's very interesting. But anyway, it just keeps going in astrology, doesn't it? And then look down here at the moon, moon to Chiron. Now, this is assuming that this birth time is correct. If it's off, that could change a little bit because the moon would be different. But nonetheless, if this is correct, he has that. But let's look also at, we've got also here Neptune over to the North Node. And that would also bring in this imagination to bring things in. His destiny has a lot to do with bringing things out of nowhere, or to dream up, what can this be? And then here he's, Neptune moved right at 0 degrees Sagittarius, which is that outward sign, right? That looking out, that broader aspect of things. So this is very interesting, just seeing this alone. And then here's a separating one from the sun to Saturn. It's like a dashed line means that it's separating. It's a little farther apart, but nonetheless, there's 72 there with the sun. So the sun is the center of a lot of this. But this one here, this grand sextile yod is pretty loud. So this is very interesting. Now let's go around and look at these, and then I want to see something else. Let's look at, well, since he's on Tucker Carlson, let's look at Tucker's chart. And oh, I had him on a different aspect. Let's look at these real quick for you. Let's let's get let's look at his quintiles. All right. Okay. Okay. Tucker. All right, let's make sure that you can see this one. All right, so here's Tucker's, and he's got a quintile from Jupiter to Saturn. Now, isn't that interesting? I mean, that's a real heavy one. That's probably right on. And then he's got a separating one from Moon to Uranus, and then Uranus over to Mars. So he can bring some unusual things out of the blue. Um, with the Uranus being sort of at the crux of Mars, that action, and the Moon, bringing that up, having that. I think it's there, or is it? Yeah, there it is. It's separating, but it still has that emotional creativity. Let me put it that way. But with the north, or with his south node, did I say? I might have said that wrong before. So his south node is connected to Saturn. So he has to look at Tucker. I mean, that's close. He has to, Saturn south node in that creative aspect. So he has to kind of reinvent. Um, he has to. This is interesting because your south node is stuff that you do well, or that you come into, or it's like kind of your past, and that's it's a tight one there with Saturn, in Taurus. So it's like that destiny of, he has to bring in the truth. He has to bring in information. He can do it in his way with the Uranus there being unusual and creative, and all that. And we see that, when we looked at him before, we saw that heavy Taurus. So he's down to earth. He's got a sun and moon there. It's just, he was born just after, I mean, a few hours after a new moon in Taurus. So, that is, a very groundedness in there. All right, let's move on. I just want you to see some of these, and I think I'm gonna have to move these for everybody. Let's just do that. No, I did it. Okay. So let's see, make sure that you see next chart. Barbara Walters, again, another person that brought forth a lot of information, and we see the Libra rising, Libra sun in the, look at barely, her sun was just there, right, just hanging out over there, by the ascendant. And then she also had Mars, a conjunct Mercury. So there we have that communication, but niceness, that um, uh, back and forth, and being a Libra rising, and then look at her vertex over there in Aries, and then that unusual stuff in Aries. So bringing things out. But let's look at her quintiles. All right, so she's got the sun over to Pluto. Another one like Elon has some of that energy there. She's also got Venus over to um, Jupiter, and then she's got Moon over to Uranus. It's almost like a complete triangle there. It's just a little off with these two planets. The Venus, interesting though, a Venus right next to Neptune, conjunction, but out of sign conjunction. They're 3 degrees apart, but those two benefics are there as well. So that was, what an interesting chart for somebody to, you'd think for what she did in life. All right, and then she's got all these separating ones, and some of this was up to the midheaven. I don't really like to look at those spots. I just like to see the planets. Okay, so that's her. That's very interesting. How that is such an ease and flow, and gave her that magic that she had to her interview people for such a long time. All right, let's look. We haven't looked at Glenn Beck. Let's look at him. And he's stepped up to the plate, I would say. I don't think he was early on, but he still had that bent. And look at him here. He's kind of got a box, a quintile box. Very, very unusual here. So, where do we start? Mercury is here. Probably the strongest one is Mercury over to Neptune. Again, bringing that communication, going inside, or having that Neptunian, what would you say, Neptune, illusion, disillusion. I'm going to communicate truths or falsities with the Neptune there. Okay, but then we also got Moon and Venus. We've got one there. So that's, he's got some inner compass that, he was having to reckon with. And over here, he's got, Jupiter is kind of at that apex of similar, like with Elon, with the two from his sun that were coming out. But he's got Pluto here and Uranus. So he's going to bring big information, a transformative, and then it's going to be unusual things for people. He wasn't as radical as Alex Jones. In fact, he copied a lot of Alex Jones's stuff. As Alex would say something, Glenn Beck would then say the same thing on his reports. So he also had that, want to bring forth those transformative, unusual things in a big way. Look at the Jupiter there in Aries. And, this year he's had a Jupiter return and a Saturn return. All right, let's move over to Alex. Let's look at him. And we see a very, more quintiles here with this person. Big ones here. Neptune over to the sun. So him again, he has that inner quest that he knows, like it's a spiritual purpose, I would say, when we have the sun and Neptune. And I've listened to this guy for 20 years, and he does have a spiritual purpose. He does have a heart. People have to just listen. I think he's finally being vindicated. But nonetheless, he also has a Mars and Mercury quintile here, just like Elon. It's that first rung of it. But they're born to different years, so he doesn't have it up here to Pluto. It's probably close. You can see, Alex was 74 and Elon was 71, so they've moved out a little bit. But anyway, Mars moves around, so it would change. But we could see how close that is. All right, what else? We also have Mercury and Saturn. They're just separating, and then Mars to Saturn. So here's a triangle. We have a quintile triangle here. So we have two legs of it and then one other. Very interesting. It's not a yod because you could see it's different, but it's still a triangle. And then we also have Venus over here to Pluto, and it's separating. That's why the dotted lines. So yeah, this guy has to, you can see he has to get forth this transformative Venus in, in Capricorn. That's just like a workaholic there. And then it's making that quintile, that magical action over there to Pluto. It's like you can't help but to work to try to save humanity and tell the truth. Look at all this here in Libra, and with the moon right in that center spot. Okay, that's a big one. Who else did I get? Let's do Rush Limbaugh. Because again, another big communicator, had a big audience for a long time. And we see another one here with Mercury. This is what I was thinking, that there was a lot of important aspects here with these people with Mercury. And I think we've found, most of them had a Mercury. If they didn't have the quincunx, it was involved close by. But look at that one, the strongest one. Looks like a baseball kind of. Anyway, Mercury here in Capricorn. So he has to work at it too, and the sun in Capricorn. Over here to Neptune, Mercury to Neptune. So bringing in that other information, that the stuff behind the scenes. And then we have the sun separating over here at his vertex, something he had to do in life. And then we have this was Venus to the midheaven. Again, that ties in with with what he does in life. And again, it's compelled, he has to do it. And then he's got Venus and Mars over there in Aquarius, that communicating that to the masses. So we're seeing some themes in these people. It's very interesting. I love having access to all the databases nowadays. And then moon over to Uranus. Unusual, things out of the blue, unusual for a lot of people. All right, did I get them all except for, oh, I didn't do Joe Rogan. He is again like one of the biggest podcasts ever. He sits down with I forget the other guy. They talk for hours. He's interviewed so many people, and he's brought out a lot of information. And he's aware now too. He's awake, and he doesn't have a lot, but the strong ones. Look at the moon over to the sun. Sun and moon. Wow, that's pretty intense. And then the sun also over to Jupiter. So that kind of, I mean, the moon over to Jupiter. That also explains the largeness of what he has to share. With the sun conjunct Jupiter, quintiling over to the moon. Whoa, bringing up that creative stuff. And he talks about everything. I mean, he talks about everybody about everything. And he's pretty, I'd say he's pretty, I mean, they cuss a lot and they get real, but he's very nice. He's not edgy. um, anyway, then we have Uranus over to Jupiter. So that would explain bringing that unusual information to others. And he's a comedian, and he's been in the UFC, a commentator for the UFC. The what's that stand for? God, I can't think of it now. I'm into astrology. That's where they do the mixed martial arts. Anyway, yeah. So then we got the separating one here. We have another Mercury involved. Mercury over to Neptune. See it again with a lot of these people, bringing that otherworldly information out. All right, and let's look at Prince here. And again, we see, I mean, he wasn't a commentator, but he was standing for a lot of things, and he really saw through the whole thing about the name. He was on the front part of like, I'm going to just be a symbol because your name, you can, he started to find out, I think, about the whole straw man stuff with his name and how the name can be owned and how you are owned. Anyway, so here's Pluto. He's Pluto in the moon, a very heavy one, and that's also at his, MC up here. But then he's got Uranus over to Jupiter. So that would be the unusualness that he brought out to the masses, to everybody. Look at this. It's kind of like a little crisscross up here. And then over here, Neptune, or he's to his ascendant. What else? We have Saturn over to the moon. So he was serious about it. That's very interesting run there. And then separating Mars to Venus. So that's what maybe with the creativeness within him, bridging that male and female side. Look at how, with that 0 degrees Aries Mars, and then that in its own sign, and then quintiling over to Venus in its own sign in Taurus. Very interesting. Okay, so quintiles. I think I'm gonna just kind of keep it at this, but because going through more is just more intense. So this is a very, very interesting angle. It's a very magical angle. Look for these in your chart. We started to go through a little bit, of all the angles last week, but it's the 72 degrees, and I think it was Astro Seek that you can get that. And I think we went through that there where you can, it showed you how you can select that. So these are some very cool angles, some very interesting things. And again, this looking at Elon now with him coming back into social media and into reality with people on a larger level, we could see that. And when we looked at his chart and we looked at his progressed and we looked at his natal, we saw all the things that were progressing, and I think it's quite telling. So you might want to visit that again if you haven't, or if you haven't, seen it ever, you might want to look at it again. It was like 5 months ago. So quintiles, I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.